Trilobe always fascinated me from afar, but it wasn't until Watches and Wonders back in March when I got to meet the founder, Gauthier Masseneau, and spent some actual hands-on time with a few of their pieces that my appreciation for the French independent brand grew quite a bit. Their take on telling time involves using rings or discs instead of traditional hands, which is unique, and their execution of this looks really good. There's a few models in their lineup, but the main two are the more traditional Nuit Fantastique and this 3D Wizard's Orb UFO looking watch that I just spent a week with, the Une Folle Journée, or A Wild Day in French. Again, I really like Trilobe and their interesting contemporary designs, but is something like this practical enough to wear every day? Well, I guess we'll find out. Trilobe is a fairly new brand, with their first watch releasing only a few years ago in 2018. Since then, they've released a handful of different collections, got nominated for a couple of GPHG awards, and even won one just a year ago for the Nuit Fantastique. The brand is definitely making quite the splash in the industry recently, and I'm here for it. I enjoy when a watch brand strays from the norm and tries something new, and that's what Trilobe has been doing from the very start. The Une Folle Journée is their most daring design so far and was released only a year ago in March of 2022. Now, I'm not usually a big fan of skeleton dials, but in this instance it works, and it sort of has to because the main attraction here is the three-dimensionality of what's inside. See, the sapphire crystal is a massive dome that protrudes from the case. It houses the time-telling mechanism, which consists of 3 eccentric rings, each one representing the hours, minutes, and seconds. They all rotate counterclockwise, yeah, that took me a minute to get used to, and they're not flat on the dial but are suspended at different elevations by columns that attach to the wheels underneath. Describing it can sound a little confusing, but seeing it in action is truly delightful. It's one of those watches you find yourself staring at throughout the day because it really is captivating to look at. As far as telling the time, it's really easy. There's a red indicator at 6 o'clock, and below it is where you'll find your hours. Right above it, the minutes in 5-minute increments, and above that, the seconds, also in 5-second increments. Unfortunately, you can't get a precise reading on the time, but that's not really necessary unless you need to time something, and I'd gravitate towards a traditional chronograph or diver for that. Being roughly a minute or two off when telling the time doesn't bother me, especially when you get to check the time on such a great looking watch. What powers the Une Folle Journée and all of Trilobe's watches is their very own eccentric caliber, which was designed by Trilobe and manufactured in Switzerland's La Chaux-de-Fonds by Le Cercle des Horlogers. It's an automatic with a micro rotor and has a 48-hour power reserve, which is impressive given that it takes some extra torque to rotate those titanium rings. Even though titanium is light, those rings weigh more than a traditional set of hands. The movement's bridges and plates are micro-blasted and electroplated for a matte dark finish, and overall looks modern. All of those engravings are done by hand, which is well done according to my macro lens, and pretty awesome since you get the same movement on not only their more expensive offerings, but their lower priced collections as well. Yeah, the front of the watch actually outdoes the rear, but still, it's a great looking movement that's unique, and you won't see anything quite like it in a run-of-the-mill big brand watch. So yeah, this watch looks kinda wild with the bulbous sapphire crystal that allows you to view the eccentric rings for telling the time and everything else inside the watch, but the grade 5 titanium case is fairly traditional. It's polished with a brushed mid case, has a crown where you typically see one at the 3 o'clock position, and measures only 10mm thick and 40.5mm in diameter. Paired with the leather strap, the watch feels much lighter than you would expect from even other titanium watches, since a majority of other brands typically match their titanium case to a titanium bracelet, thus adding a little bit more weight. Not only is the case kinda normal in a good way, at least when compared to everything else about the watch, but it's 50 meters water resistant as well. I personally wouldn't swim in it or anything like that, but at least I'm not worried about getting it wet during my ultra vigorous hand washing sessions. By the way, this watch will set you back $22,900, but the more traditional Nuit Fantastique is around half the price at $10,600. Yes, that's a lot of money, but when compared to some other independents out there, I think it's a good value, especially for such a thoughtful design. So back to the original question, is this watch practical enough to wear on a day-to-day basis? I'd say yes. Wearing it is a statement. I mean, look at it. It's like nothing else on the market, but it fits just like a regular old watch. It's not in some crazy case like a Eurowork, and it's not that hard to tell the time on it. It's also water resistant to a certain degree and wears incredibly light on the wrist. The only thing that would worry me is maybe accidentally hitting that dome crystal on something, but I worry about hitting any watch on anything. So yeah, I'm fully comfortable wearing this watch, and I'm actually considering adding one to my personal collection someday. I'd probably go with the Nuit Fantastique in Dune since I love that color and it's a little more in my price range. I like all sorts of watches, but to be honest, and I've said this before, a lot of recent watch designs are all looking kind of similar. Some brands with a century's worth of history haven't dramatically changed their watch designs all that much. It's all about evolutionary baby steps throughout the years rather than revolutionary changes. That's all fine and dandy, but I like when a brand thoughtfully shakes things up a little. Hands for telling the time? Throw them out. We've got a new idea. And I dig that way of thinking from Trilobe. I guarantee the Une Full Journée isn't for everyone, but for me, this is great modern watchmaking. Thanks, Trilobe.